Hi guys, my name's Thomas. I'm the founder of Brickspace Lab. We're a small team of designers and developers who make Shopify themes. Today, I'll go over our newest Shopify theme, Paper. We'll talk a bit more about how to get it set up in the Shopify theme editor, go over some of the global settings, setting up your brand, picking your colors, typography, font. I'm in our new development store. I just installed a fresh copy of Paper and I've imported a bunch of demo products, so we actually have stuff to look at. So I'll just go to online store. Under themes, I've got Paper installed, and if you don't already have it installed and you want to use it, you can head to the theme store, download it there. But if you already have it installed, you can click customize. This is the theme editor. So before we start making any changes, I'll just kind of give you a quick rundown on what everything is here. Up at the top bar, this is the theme name. So if you're working on a duplicate theme, you can see it says it's live. So if you have a copy of a theme that's not live, you're gonna know which one you're working on. If you click the three dots, you can see more information on your theme, view documentation, get support, all useful information. This drop down right in the center can help you find different templates. So if you want to, right now we're on the home page, but if you want to, let's say, edit the product template, you'd click into products, edit the default product template. The activate inspector button here basically lets you visually click on the website to select different collections or different blocks, make your changes that way. This button here on the right side lets you switch the preview. So right now we're in the desktop mode. You can view mobile preview or go to full screen. Desktop's the easiest to work with when we're actually making changes because we can see all the settings. So on the left-hand side here, we have our settings. So this first button is our sections, and this is basically the different content that appears on this template. This right here is basically settings that apply to the entire theme. Things like colors, borders, typography. These settings are going to be applied across your entire site. App embed, we're not really going to go over that today, but if you are using apps or if you have an app installed, one of the best ways to install it would be through an app embed because you're not going to be messing with code and then your theme is still compatible for updates. So super easy way to do app installation through embeds if your app is compatible. Next up, before you start building out your theme, you're definitely going to want to make sure you have your branding elements in place. Maybe if you're an older business, you definitely probably already have this, but if you're a new business, you want to make sure you've got a logo, you've got a color palette, you've got at least some idea for the visual identity, visual direction for your website. You can definitely just jump into the theme editor and start playing around, but it's a good idea to at least get a little bit of inspiration or have an idea of what you want your website to look like beforehand. You probably want to check out a few different websites for inspiration. So from here, I'll usually go in and just clean up the theme, get rid of all the default sections, and then start from like a blank slate. So let me just do that now. This will just give us a better idea because we don't need to customize everything at once. We can just start with a few sections. From here, because all our demo products here are set up basically for a department store, they're all lumber, nails, screws, basically what I'm going to model the brand after. So I've looked at some sites like Canadian Tire or Home Depot for a bit of inspiration, but I have some idea of what I want the website to look like, but we'll just get going and see what happens. So let me actually drop in a grid of products. So we've got the products up in here. This is all the default colors, so it's very plain right now. So first thing I want to do is drop in our logo. I've got the Paper brand logo there. That's what we're going to call our store. I'll just adjust the logo height. I think that looks good there. Maybe get rid of that border and hit save. So now I'm going to go into the theme-wide settings, so under colors, and I'll start playing around with some of this stuff. Kind of just got into the flow there and did a bunch of changes without really telling you, so let me just go over that quickly. So first of all, I switched out some of the colors. The default background is still our light white color. The main text color is gonna be this dark color, so that's all the text we see is using that color. The light text is going to be used anytime a section, you specifically tell that section to use a light text color. So this text here, for example, using the light text color. The border, there are a few shades of border colors available in our settings. So if you pick a light color here, you'll have the option to select a darker color based on this color. Primary colors, so you can select a background and foreground. So background is the color of the button, and then the text is the button text. So you could set 3 different color palettes, the primary, secondary, and tertiary. Those all show up throughout the theme as different choices you can pick. So you can choose your buttons to be primary, secondary, or tertiary buttons. And then the final setting is the mobile bar color. So that's actually controlling when you're on a mobile device, and this top color just in the status bar of your phone, you can set that to be a specific color. Back here, all those colors look good. So I can just show you now how this applies to the theme. So if I go back into the announcement bar, I can now pick the colors I just set up. So primary, that's that red color, and it automatically makes the text inside the primary text color. So the secondary or tertiary. And then as well, we have the body background, which is the white one, the neutral background, which is a combination between the primary color and the body color. You can use it as an accent color. And then we actually have 3 more accent colors. So the accent colors are slightly darker versions of the background color, the body background. So if you want to be a little bit darker, you can go accent 2, slightly more darker accent 3. But if you want something to really stick out, you can use any one of these theme colors, like primary or secondary. In our banner section, for example, you can click into the button block, and then here you can select different button themes. I can change that to the secondary button, and then here we can go neutral or plain. The plain button just uses the body background and then the main text color. That is looking pretty good. Next up, let's go over some of the border settings. So border settings are relatively simple. We only have 4 settings to look at in our theme settings. So the first 3 options are for radius. So the button radius controls the radius of our button elements. So right now we have this at 50 pixels, so it's creating a pill rounded shape. But if we want to go to a perfect square button, you could do that. Square buttons, no problem. But if you want something maybe a little rounded, you can go 4 pixels. If we want to match that for the other elements, we can do that as well. The input radius applies to input fields, so that would be the search field there. And the element radius applies to images and content blocks that have borders around them. So like this, for example, we've got the element radius on that. If I were to bump that up, that's now going to look like that. So you've got these different settings, so you can kind of mix and match how you want those to look. For this, I'm just going to set everything at 4 pixels. And then down from that, we have our border width. This is single setting and applies a width to all the borders and dividers in the theme. 1 pixel is pretty much what you want to use. You might want to go to 2 pixels, but again, it's really up to you. You can see it kind of changes the look and feel quite a bit. Save. We are now into the typography setting. First up, we're selecting our font families. The first font is our body font, and this font is going to be the main font used throughout the theme. So for any longer pieces of text, that's the body font. I'm actually going to set that back to 1 pixel because looks a lot better. We can select that as Muli. And a note on fonts is you probably want to stick to 2 fonts if you can. If you can also use system fonts, that's going to speed up your website even further. So using other fonts down here, that's going to cause your website to load an additional asset. It's not always necessary, especially if you have a pretty simple brand, something where you don't need a custom font. So there's no reason why I couldn't just go the system sans serif font. Select that, and we could do the same for the heading, but I think the heading's important. So let's go in and let's actually pick a nice heading font. Merriweather. How does that one look? All right, I like that. And then the navigation font applies to buttons, interactive, clickable things. So I'll also just set that as a sans serif system font. The base font size, you can go as low as 16 and up to 20. And as you scale that, the whole site scales based on that base sizing. So 16's pretty good, and it's probably going to be what you want to stick to for most settings or most themes. Below that, you can set up your header bar font. So that's what font is up here. You can specifically use the heading font, or you can just use the default body font. You can also change the capitalization on that as well, or just use standard. And then for thumbnails, so any product thumbnails, you can set those to use different fonts. I've selected the heading font, so we see our bold font for all the titles. And then we can also change the capitalization on that. Now those are all capitalized, but I'll put that back. Button capitalization, we can change that as well. That applies to all the buttons. Cool. Let me just hit save. Moving on from there, we've got our layout settings. This is the header position. So we've got 3 options here: sticky, standard, and dynamic. Sticky, basically the header stays up there. You can see it at all times as you scroll. The standard is going to be, you scroll down, it stays up there. Dynamic is kind of a combination of the two. If you scroll down, it fades away, but as you scroll back up, it comes back into view. I'll just set that to standard. And then horizontal alignment basically sets a default alignment for additional page layouts. So you can really see this if you go to like a contact page, for example. Right now it's set to left. You can set that to centered. Now that content is centered aligned. I'll just use the left alignment now. And then the final setting here is the horizontal margin, and this basically controls the margin throughout the page. So if you want to go full width, the content is going to go from edge to edge. Standard's a bit more narrow, and then narrow is even more narrow. For most cases, standard or wide is a good option. The grid margin, so this sets the gap between your grid items. So the products here, for example, there's an 8 pixel gap between each of these. You can set that up to 20, and you can see that gap increases. I'll just leave that, let's say 12. Moving on from there, audio. So this is a bit more of a unique feature on paper. It adds some audio interface sounds to your site. So when you add something to your cart, if you click add to cart, there's going to be a little beep sound, and you can hear that. I'll disable that. Animations, there's some subtle animations throughout the theme. You can enable or disable that. I'll just leave that on. Favicon, that's just setting the little logo appears in the tab of your website. Going down from there, thumbnails is a pretty powerful section setting here. This actually controls the thumbnails for most of your website. These product cards, product thumbnails, for example, here are taking a lot of the settings from here. For example, you can set the background color, the border. So if I can use the strong border, there we go. Or you can use the faded border. You can set the aspect ratio. So if I want these images to be square, you can also set the image sizing. And then the border style, right now we only have a border around the images, but if we want to have a border around the entire card, you can do that like so. You can change the horizontal alignment, so we can center align things, change how we're showing the savings badge, whether that's a percent or amount. We can do that there. So save $10. We can show the variant count, product type, product vendor, SKU. So now all that is showing in there, and that is looking nice.